Today I'm reacting to Frieren episode 1, the next 3 episodes and full reaction are on Patreon. An ageless elegy. Wow, we're getting a lot of exposition just in the OP itself. I'm not necessarily catching up with it. So, are these all the things that are going to be happening in the series itself? Or is it like the prologue? Oh! Okay, it's like high fantasy? Like, I literally have no idea what the show is about whatsoever, I promise. Okay, great animation so far. I have no idea what this show is going to be about, so is it kind of like Dungeons and Dragons-y? Okay, so Frieren is the name of a person. Oh, okay! Oh, so it's a band of fantasy warriors at the end of a journey, beginning a new one. That's so cool. Oh, not that big tunnel reminding me of the gate from Attack on Titan. Ugh. You don't need me to tell you this, but right off the bat, the production, 10 out of 10. Could not be better. Like the art direction and then actual direction, they know exactly what type of story they're trying to tell. She's a mage. Oh, they're so cute. That's cute. Obviously there's a lot to come, but if they do character development and the writing correctly, then I'll love this show. 10 years? Ah, okay, there's a bit of comedy as well. Poor priest. This is a very interesting way of getting exposition for our characters. Like, right off the bat, we empathize with them. Oh. But maybe for her, time moves slower because is she like really old even though she looks young? I'm so interested in finding out more about this world and the lore behind it. Yeah, I wonder how long does she live relative to the rest of them? Such a beautiful shot. I swear to, oh my god, this animation is just stunning. Really is. Yeah, I was thinking she's quite old. Love the soundtrack. Oh my god, the choir voices in the background of the audio. Perfect. It's kind of giving What If Violet Evergarden, but set in kind of like a Skyrim-esque world. That's a great homage to Melancholia with the poster design. Okay, what happens there? And it's so interesting for a character like her, how her sense of time is always going to be different from the characters around her. Love that. Yeah, so has he just had it for like 50 years or something? Oh, that's very cute. Again, just with regards to the actual production of the show, the voice recording just sounds so crisp, it sounds perfect. What is going to happen at this meteor shower? I'm very curious.
頭なでんな。アイゼンはあまり変わっていないね。だからここから1週間くらい歩いて。
まったく。
I wonder why it is that they're traveling on foot rather than using another form of transport.
あの時に戻ったかも。
This is so interesting. All these like montages we're getting just within the first episode, like all the crossfading. It's so interesting. Oh, that soaring soundtrack coming in. Very, very good.
その美しい思い出の中にはいつも君たちがいた。
I can imagine this will be fondly loved by those who like Lord of the Rings.
君のおかげで最後にとても楽しい冒険ができた。
It makes me want to rewatch Lord of the Rings.
綺麗だ。
Stunning. Oh, okay. Are we getting an inciting incident? What's going on? It sounds so weird, but it's like this is an anime with like a level of prestige behind it.
そうなのかな。
あの子ヒンメル様の仲間なんだって。悲しい顔一つしないなんて。
私たちもしていませんよ。市長は真面目にやれ。この白状者。
That's very cute.
手痛いですな。
だって私、この人のこと何も知らないし。
Oh. To be with a person for 10 years and feel like you don't know anything about them.
分かっていたのに、なんでもっと知ろうと思わなかったんだろう。
God, it has to be the loneliest life for elves because humans live to them the equivalent of dogs for us.
では私も生徒に戻るとしましょう。
どこか悪いの？
長年の酒がたたりましてね。
So fair. That's really funny.
私たちは世界を救った勇者パーティーですよ。死後は天国で贅沢三昧に決まっています。魔法収集の旅か。
So she collects magic.
私はもっと人間を知ろうと思う。
Ah, so this is the inciting incident. Okay, interesting.
もう斧を触れるような年じゃないんだ。
I love his beard. It's cute.
人生ってのは衰えてからの方が案外長いもんさ。
そっか。じゃあまたね、アイゼン。
あ、また。
Oh, that music. Oh, it's totally after my own heart. Okay, yeah, I'm in. I'm in. Frieren, let's do this.
どこだ？
Oh, the scenery is just fantastic. 20 years later. Oh, hi.
いや、ハイターって人の家を探しているんだけど。
では、お客様でございますね。
かっこよく死ぬのも難しいものですな。
墓に備える酒買ってきたんだけど。
That's great to see him.
今さらいい子ぶったって女神様は許してくれないと思うけどね。
フェルンと言います。南側諸国の戦災孤児でした。
Okay, so there's actual large wars that happen in this world as well.
進んで旅先で会う人とはなるべく関わるようにしているからね。それにハイターにはたくさん借りがあるから。
では一つ頼み事を。
Okay, go ahead.
弟子を取りませんか。魔法使いとしての素質があり、
interesting.
あなたの旅に連れて行ってくれませんか。
友人から預かった子を七に送るつもりはないよ。
そうですか。では別
I wasn't expecting him to have a backup. What's the different request? Oh my god, to be an elf and have your whole life being able to read. Oh, so envious.
実在するとは思えないけど。
それも含めて解読をお願いしたいのです。
Oh, I love that plot device. I love that.
使った暗号でしょ。まあ、5、6年もあれば。
そうですか。
死ぬのは怖くないんじゃなかったの？
不死とは言わず、ほんの少しでいいから時間が欲しくなったのです。それに晴天には
Oh, the way I'm going to absolutely love this show.
少女はその最たるものですよ、フリーレン。解読の片手まで構わないので、フェルンに魔法を教えてあげても
Oh,
らえません
that's
か。
cute.
まあ、そのくらいなら。
God, we're getting so much within this very first episode. I can't believe it.
フリーレン様でも私を見つけるのが大変でございましたか。存在感が薄いとハイター様からもよく言われます。
魔力探知にほとんど引っかからない。卓越した魔力の操作技術だ。
あの一番岩を打ち抜けば一人前になれると言われました。
I wonder how old this character is, like, roughly. I was thinking it wouldn't reach that far. The biggest compliment I can give about the world setting so far is, like, it feels like a mix between Lord of the Rings and Breath of the Wild.
先に一つ聞いていい？魔法は好き？
ほどほどでございます。
私と同じだ。
Perfect, the art. It's literally just started, but I hope that we get the same ED with every episode so I can appreciate more and more each time. So I loved it. I absolutely loved it. I absolutely loved it. This show is exactly for me. This is exactly the type of thing I'm interested in. So when I'm filming this yesterday. I filmed the first 3 episodes of Dandadan for the very first time. That's how far back I have to record these videos in advance. And, you know, whilst Dandadan is a new show, and I'm sure it's going to get kind of like a lot of views, I don't think these Frieren reactions will necessarily get a lot of views compared to what I'd be getting. And, you know, I do try to grow the channel as much as I can. But look, even if I'm not going to get many views for this, I think that I will still amass a tiny little niche of people who are here just to see a person be interested in what they're watching. And let me tell you, I am going to be interested in this show. I just loved it beginning to end. I was so surprised to see that it was going to be a take on the high fantasy genre, something which I haven't actually seen in anime before. Now, granted, I'm still very much a beginner weeb. I'm still getting into all this stuff. I mean, it's really only been a handful of anime that I've seen absolutely beginning to end every single episode thus far. I think actually, as it stands, which anime have I seen every single episode beginning to end so far? With the exception of Death Note and Attack on Titan, and Chainsaw Man, and maybe a 4th one. I haven't actually seen any anime ever. Oh, and Neon Genesis Evangelion. That wasn't necessarily for me though. But yeah, I mean, it's only, I'm still kind of getting used to the genre and the medium of anime, so I have a lot to learn. But oh my god, so it's basically, and I know it. You see, I don't want it to be reductive to compare every single high fantasy thing to Lord of the Rings, but when you are comparing it to Lord of the Rings, when something feels like Lord of the Rings, because like that is it's been described before as the Mount Everest of high fantasy, in the sense that it's where every other work within the medium is either looking up at it or it's standing on top of it to look at everything else. That is to say that it really is the pinnacle of the genre, because it gets everything that makes the genre work down so well, in that you get the lore, you get the sense of this is a tangible world, as well as you get the character depth. And it's not to say that by any means you have to lock yourself into a box and follow that exact recipe, because so much of what Lord of the Rings was doing, whilst of course based on so much of the mythology and the religious text from like years and years prior, it also weaved it together in a way that felt unique. I mean, it was like, even though I haven't read it myself, friends of mine who've read the Silmarillion, just all the stuff that is within there, it's so unique to him. And I believe that what is going on with Frieren is doing something of the same thing. Even just within this first episode, I definitely got the feeling once we got to about roughly the halfway point, once we were at the funeral scene, I was just trying to picture in my head, okay, what way would that have been presented in the manga? Because I'd imagine a person reading that volume 1 of the manga and being like, whoa, this is like, we're getting so much information, but none of it necessarily to do with character conflict, just character exposition. My mind is going into 3 or 4 different places so far, so I want to keep this relatively concise, because as much as there are people who are such big fans of this show out there and want to hear me just rant and rave and just gush over it, I do want to keep the review relatively concise as well, so I can get into watching more. But I think it's... So what is it about this that I like? I like it in the sense that how would I describe the writing of it necessarily? I would say that we do get exposition, but it's still able to withhold a lot of exposition and keep the exposition that we're getting not verbal, but visual instead. Like we have the montage sequences. Like when you think about it, because I looked up the Wikipedia just for this first episode, don't worry. I didn't go anywhere past that. I haven't been spoiled at all. But I was even just like, seeing the timeline, just reminding myself of like, yeah, like this first episode covers 70 years. And like for regardless of the context, for that to happen in your very first episode, you really are making a statement there. I feel as though a lot of what makes this episode so strong to me, not only as a pilot, but just as a proof of concept for what the show is going to be, I did do in the reaction, but I still kind of want to say it all here, is that what appeals to me so much about Frieren is this seems to be a show that is going to deliver with character depth, with character exploration, with real internal conflict of the characters. And that is something that I don't necessarily think is like better or worse than other shows. It's just something that resonates with me. So I brought up the example of Dandadan, which isn't in any way whatsoever trying to knock that show at all. From the first 3 episodes I've seen, I think it looks like it's going to be a really well-made show. But I'm just speaking more so about my preferences as an audience member and what it is that I tend to gravitate towards. And for me, I gravitate way more towards the likes of Frieren because I like dealing with the kind of like deep, very interpersonal conflicts, that kind of thing. And it's not in some, I'm not trying to say because it's like the Thinking Man's anime or anything like that. It's not, I just feel like they're two different genres in a way. When you have different shows dealing with characters at different levels of complexity, that they're just two separate things. And the example that's come to mind, I'm now remembering the 5th anime, and I think that's it. The 5th anime that I've actually watched beginning to end, which is so different from everything, is Lucky Star. But I mean, like that take with regards to character depth or lack thereof, like that, it suits that genre. And not only what is happening here seems to suit the genre, it feels organic because you have the high fantasy, the mystical, probably like a little bit of supernatural, all the magic happening here, but it's not doing it in a way where, I guess here's a better way of putting it. The better way of putting it is that this, to me so far, feels like a high fantasy anime that is going to cater to those already familiar with the genre. Because on the one hand, again, just to bring this back to Lord of the Rings seems to be quite accessible to those who aren't maybe the most familiar with the genre, because it essentially plays as an adventure movie. I'm talking about the actual movies now, not the book. It plays as a movie because the initial premise of the story is so easy for an audience to attach to. Is here's the chosen hero who has to defeat the evil demon, and he brings his friends with him, which is like every adventure story basically. And that level of accessibility is basically the entry point that people forget that they're basically watching a high fantasy. And obviously there's so much that happens within Lord of the Rings as well that I'm not trying to be naive and say that those things aren't apparent as well. What I'm trying to say is that there's a level of accessibility that allows people to kind of suspend disbelief that they're watching something like high fantasy. It's something that, when you get to the later seasons of Game of Thrones, and I know Game of Thrones isn't really like high fantasy at all. It's high fantasy, but so much of that show is also like really leaning into the drama genre and leading into like the political drama genre as well. A show like that seems to have kind of like its foot in two doors, and like for the first couple of seasons it worked so well because of that, and then you end up getting like watered down versions of both genres as the seasons went on and on. But for something like Frieren Beyond Journey's End, what a beautiful title for the show as well, it seems to work because, and this is again why basically I'm doing an anime reaction channel, is because this is a type of medium where they have the funding to create really well produced shows that are going to cater to a large audience, but relatively speaking, the audience itself is still so niche that they're able to take these big risks. Like you didn't like this is a show where if this was had been made by the West, they would have done a lot more hand holding. I mean, like again, I'm trying to think to myself like the Lord of the Rings, the movie trilogy, it probably wouldn't even be made today because the industry is just not there anymore. I mean, like 2023 was the first year in which every single movie in the blockbuster top 10 was a prequel, sequel, reboot, or in some way another form of a pre-existing IP. In other words, there was no original idea there. No one wants to go to the cinema anymore. Everyone wants everything delivered to them with streaming. Shows are getting cancelled left, right, and center because rather than making 10 quality shows, we'll throw 100 at the kitchen sink and see what sticks. Something like Stranger Things lasts for so many seasons over like a 10-year period, and it's still like only a couple dozen episodes to show for it. So I gravitate towards anime as a medium because I know that it kind of feels like the golden age of television in a way in which they're able to take these risks and they're able to get the funding. So long as an audience is demanding more episodes to be made, more episodes will be made. And they already go through the process of having the manga created, so they know there's going to be an audience for it. And even if the adaptation isn't necessarily going to be the best 100% of the time, looking at you, Uzumaki, nonetheless, there's going to be such a fervent fan base for the stories happening that you know the quality is going to be there in a way where they don't have to hold your hand. So I guess the whole point I'm trying to take, and I said that this was going to be concise, and now I've just been rambling for minutes and minutes. I promise this is all coming just because I fucking love this pilot. The point I'm trying to get at is Frieren works for me so well because they are willing to create a high fantasy anime without necessarily holding your hand or giving you bucket loads of really easy to follow exposition for the sake of it. Everything that was happening within this episode was done for the purpose of giving explication to Frieren, the character, her desire and her motivation. And this really feels like this is a story that's already been fully written. So they're able to be more quick paced with the opening, and they're able to deliver particular lines which you know are kind of foreshadowing for where her character is going to eventually end up. I feel as though everything that makes the story work with regards to the high fantasy genre in and of itself is pretty self-evident, not only from the production but also from the world building, from the characters that are being introduced. Like, the show knows what it is, and I feel as though the audience are going to respond to that. So all that's left now is going to say, right, no matter what it is that you're doing, it's apparent that you are really going to deliver on creating a high fantasy show, but are you going to be able to take us one step further? Or more importantly, as writers, do you have a desire to bring it one step further? And to me, just from the first episode alone, they have proven that they are going to do that with the character of Frieren, because everything is coming from her motivations and her intentions, but also her trauma and everything. Like, for her to continuously go through life seeing those around her die, that's such a existentially and arguably even a morally deep conundrum to have. And for the show to portray her going through so much emotionally because of that, just one episode in, I think that not only is this is the type of show where even from the first episode, even if I wasn't into this type of storytelling, even if I wasn't into stories of this kind of seriousness with characters or even the high fantasy genre, I would still be able to appreciate it for what it is. But the fact that all these things are hitting my preferences, like, then it's game, set, and match, really. And just to be clear, it's not even necessarily that, like, I adore the high fantasy genre. It's just more so that when the genre is done well, when the genre is the foundation for having cerebrally and emotionally complex, character-driven storytelling, that's when it really, really hits for me. If you have watched this entire review, I am so sorry. I spent like, what, it had been like 10 minutes just ranting about Lord of the Rings. I swear, again, it's just because I'm so enthusiastic. When I'm really enthusiastic about the show, then I'll start tangenting, and then my mind will start drawing connections here, and here, because I'm just so enthralled by what I'm watching. I promise that it wasn't just as a means to an end of like indulging my own interest in talking about Lord of the Rings. It's just because Frieren is bringing up in me all those feelings of what it is I adore so much about that series. So, very long-winded review that you did not need, and thankfully I don't have to feel that embarrassed, because I probably won't get that many people watching this first episode reaction anyway. So I'm going to leave it there. If you've watched it this far into the review, I am sorry, but also thank you so much if you're just one of my free YouTube subscribers or you're a patron. Either way, thank you so much for your support. It really means the world. It's my favorite thing to do. I'm very much looking forward to watching more Frieren, so I'm going to leave it at that. Arigatou gozaimasu. Thanks for watching.